heard a lot about government surveillance today and how it's destroying our privacy. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak along with this distinguished and extremely knowledgeable set of panelists. And I'm here to explain what it is that we can do about this. And some people would even question whether we can do anything about this. And I would answer, quoting the president, yes, we can, but only if the public outcry about it is loud enough to move legislators and officials to action. So Restore the Fourth is here to help to organize that public outcry. It's a grassroots organization educating and mobilizing people around the issue of the Fourth Amendment. So some of you might want a little explanation of what exactly the Fourth Amendment does say. So here's the first part. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. So that means we have a right to privacy. The next part of the amendment talks about procedural protections for privacy rights, and it says, and no warrants shall issue, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. So that means no general warrants that would authorize mass surveillance, such as reading everyone's mail or everyone's email. It means that mass surveillance can't be justified by a standard of relevance, as in let's collect all the information because maybe later some of it will turn out to be relevant to some counterterrorism investigation. That would make the Fourth Amendment meaningless. Fortunately, today we have organizations like ACLU, EPIC, also the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
CCDBR.
We're also very grateful to have the long-standing actions of CCDBR in educating the public and sounding the alarm and keeping the fight alive. What I specifically wanted to mention was organizations that are fighting lawsuits that demand that the government respect our constitutional rights. And that's a very important task, and it costs money, so if you're already supporting those organizations with a membership donation, thank you. And if you're not, please do. There's nothing easier that you can do to make a difference on this issue. But we also do need more than just lawsuits. We need new laws to protect our rights. So here in brief is the legislative platform of Restore the Fourth Chicago. Number 1, end blanket surveillance. Number 2, reform the FISA court. So that's to stop authorizing surveillance programs wholesale and go back to doing what it was supposed to do, which is issue warrants for particular surveillance actions. Number 3, there needs to be more transparency. So we need a full, independent congressional investigation of surveillance. And we need to stop the government from using secret interpretations of law to justify its surveillance programs. Can we accomplish that? Again, yes we can. And I say that very confidently because, in fact, we have been here before. America overcame a very similar problem before and can do so again. As was alluded to earlier, in the 70s we had this same problem. So just to get into the history in just a little bit of detail, back in 1974, a shocking story broke in the newspaper, this time the New York Times. We found out the CIA was illegally opening and reading Americans' mail. And then there were revelations of more illegal domestic mass surveillance programs. The NSA was getting Americans international telegrams. The FBI was spying on peaceful activist groups and trying to stifle political opposition. And Americans, and in general, in Congress in particular, came to understand that intelligence agencies at that time were totally out of control. So the result was a very thorough congressional investigation, which resulted in the passing of reform laws. Some of the most important achievements were permanent intelligence oversight committees in Congress, and this FISA court, which was supposed to restrain electronic surveillance of Americans by granting warrants only when it was truly appropriate. And the system worked well until 9/11, when everything started to come undone. We've heard some legislation mention, the Patriot Act, the FISA Amendments Act of 2008, that was ill-advised and resulted in the intelligence agencies getting out of control again. So what we need to do now is really just to restore the legal protections we had before, primarily, and then also add new laws that, as was mentioned, may go beyond what the Constitution itself mandates. We can do that as a democracy. The people can decide that. And add new laws that are relevant to the era that we live in, where emails are pervasive, people use the internet, data fusion is something that happens, and we might want to regulate how it happens. So the good news is that support for reform is already strong. So who here has heard about the Amash Amendment? Okay, many people, that's good, but let me give a little detail for those who haven't. It was a proposal in Congress to remove funding for the NSA's phone metadata surveillance program. And it came within just a very few votes of passing, with bipartisan support. And beyond that, at this point, from what members of Congress are saying, it's clear that many of them understand that the intelligence oversight system is broken and it needs to be fixed. So one of the problems is that the intelligence agencies have been deliberately keeping Congress in the dark. So here's Representative Amash explaining how it is that the intelligence agencies thwart oversight. He says, you don't have any idea what kind of things are going on, so you have to start just spitting off random questions. Does the government have a moon base? Does the government have a talking bear? Does the government have a cyborg army? If you don't know what kind of things the government might have, you just have to guess, and it becomes a totally ridiculous game of 20 questions. Another thing that we should realize is that Congress never actually authorized mass domestic surveillance. When intelligence officials try to claim that the programs that they're defending are legal, they're relying on fishy interpretations of the law that were cooked up by the executive branch. And some members of Congress have gotten really angry about that. So here is words from an author of the Patriot Act, Representative Jim Sensenbrenner. I can say that if Congress knew what the NSA had in mind in the future, immediately after 9/11, the Patriot Act never would have passed, and I never would have supported it. So we're in a situation where we have already almost enough support to institute major reforms that should help to fix the problem. And this is a situation where grassroots organizing can make the difference between success or failure. What we need to do is make Congress hear the voice of the people, loud and clear, in favor of Fourth Amendment privacy rights and against mass surveillance. So next you're going to hear from Ben Dornberg of Restore the Fourth's national organization, and he'll tell you about an important rally happening in Washington, D.C. next Saturday, the 26th, organized by the Stop Watching Us Coalition, which involves many groups. Here in Chicago, we'll have a solidarity rally in Federal Plaza on the same day. And we're going to work towards organizing ever larger demonstrations to educate the public, build the movement so we can get the numbers that it's going to take to win influence. But already, Restore the Fourth Chicago is working on lobbying our Chicago area representatives and Illinois senators. Unfortunately, only Bobby Rush and Danny Davis, among them, voted for the Amash Amendment. We need to get more of our representatives here to vote on the right side of this issue. So already, Restore the Fourth Chicago has been speaking with some of these...
Hi everyone, my name is...
If you can wait a minute, I'll be done soon. So we've already met and spoken with staffers of some of our representatives, and they've asked us to send them our policy analyses, which we generated. And we're working now towards setting up in-person meetings with every one of the Chicago area representatives. But to make that happen, it helps to have 5 or 6 of their constituents asking for the meeting. And in some districts, we don't have enough members yet. So if that's something that you would be willing to help out with, please come talk to us after the meeting to volunteer. Catherine Callahan, you're here with me, and in the back, other members, Tracy McGill and Warren D. You could talk to them too. Okay. So it's very important that we take action about this now, because now is when we have a window of opportunity. Congress and the American people are paying attention to the issue of government surveillance because of the revelations from Edward Snowden and others. There are bills being proposed in Congress right now. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. We need a real reform that will solve the problem and not some mere cosmetic reform that's supposed to make us forget about the problem. And it's very important we must achieve reform. Why? Well, here's how it was put by Frank Church, who chaired a Senate investigative committee in the 70s. He said, "There is no more pernicious threat to a free society than a secret police which is operating beyond the law. If these abuses had not been uncovered, and had the agencies gone unchecked, we might well have seen a secret police develop in the United States. Once that begins, the Constitution itself is in very real danger." I know you're concerned about it because you're here. And I'm here to tell you, you don't have to just go home after this conference and sit alone worrying, what is this country coming to? You have the opportunity to join with others to preserve democracy. So please, come to the Restore the Fourth Chicago rally in Federal Plaza at 12:30 on Saturday. Come see some of us from Restore the Fourth Chicago after the conference ends to talk about knowledge opportunities. Let's ensure that future generations inherit the blessings of liberty passed down to us by generations that came before. Thank you.